Fortunately, some things remain forever, or another 10 years perhaps.
Whoa, that's Bob Camblin for you. Throws you right in, doesn't he? Welcome to the deep dive.
Where we dive deep into all sorts of fascinating ideas and really try to pull them apart for you so you can, get the good stuff.
Exactly. And today we've got a whole treasure trove all about the artist Bob Camblin. We're talking quotes straight from him, biographical details, excerpts from books, even a whole YouTube discussion breaking down his work. Oh, and can't forget those reviews. Always interesting to see those different takes.
Absolutely. And this deep dive, it's not just about looking at pretty pictures, it's about trying to understand what made Camblin tick, what made his art so unique. His whole view on art, life, identity, the whole creative process. This guy, he's original, that's for sure.
He really is. And our goal today is to sort of give you a shortcut, a way to really grasp what sets him apart without having to go through all the research yourself.
Right. So we've got this multifaceted individual. Where do we even begin? Well, one thing that keeps popping up like a recurring dream almost is this whole idea of the series of masks. We see it mentioned in a book excerpt and then again in the YouTube transcript, both talking about his etching.
And what's so fascinating is how Camblin approaches these masks. They aren't just straightforward portraits. They're these fragmented identities, kind of like
Right.
like you're seeing through layers. The YouTube people talk about it as 9 windows into the soul, where you've got these recognizable human expressions, but then bam, surreal elements, even like hints of animalistic or even alien forms, all within the same face.
Like it really gets to this idea that who we are, it's not fixed. The book ties it to Zen philosophy, to this concept of the illusory self. They even quote that classic Zen question, what was your face before you were born? Really makes you think, huh, what's under all those roles we play, all the faces we show the world?
For sure. And it raises a big question when the book points out about the masks people wear. Not just literal masks, but those metaphorical ones. The personas we project, the things we hide. Camblin seems really, really interested in that.
Yeah, and it's not just about concealing things. The I Ching also comes up, specifically hexagram 38, opposition.
Yeah.
And it talks about this tension, this inherent conflict we all have within us, the different parts of us, the different roles we play that sometimes seem to contradict each other.
And what's interesting is that if you look at Camblin's work as a whole, it kind of suggests that facing those contradictions, acknowledging those inner dualities, that's where you start to get a more complete picture of yourself.
Right, like it's about finding harmony in what might at first seem like totally separate parts of yourself. And his artistic style really underscores this, doesn't it? The book mentions the influences of surrealism and expressionism, which, by the way, for our listener, those were big art movements in the early 20th century. Surrealism explored the dreamlike and irrational, while expressionism aimed to convey intense emotions, through distorted forms and colors.
Right. Think Salvador Dali for surrealism and Edvard Munch for expressionism. And the way Camblin uses mixed media, those inks and washes, it creates this feeling, this ethereal, almost unsettling quality.
Definitely goes beyond just trying to paint a realistic picture. It's much more about the nature of who we are, how we perceive ourselves, and how we perceive each other, which kind of brings us to another important theme, Camblin's view on art itself.
Totally. One review we looked at said, for Camblin, art is a series of questions disguised as images. That's a powerful
I mean,
statement.
it is. It tells you right away that he's not interested in giving you easy answers. He's trying to make you think.
And then they talk about how his drawings are like paradoxes made visible, like traps that don't actually trap anything, or structures that look like they're moving but are perfectly still. The review called them blueprints for ideas, not finished statements.
It's like he's showing you how to think, not what to think. He's giving you the tools, the framework.
Exactly. And the metaphors he uses are so intriguing. Tricks of illusion, traps, stillness. And the review points out that these aren't just artistic techniques. They're reflections on life, on the human condition. Like, what do we consider real? What are the invisible traps we fall into? And those moments of stillness we sometimes find, what are those all about?
And then there's that quote, seeing should be believed. It's like he's saying, trust your senses even when things seem contradictory. And then there's that really playful quote, if you think it's funny, I'll get serious. And if you think it's serious, I'll make a joke of it. Almost like he's daring you to categorize him.
Yeah, he's definitely not easy to pigeonhole. And speaking of not fitting into a box, his whole view of the artist role was pretty unconventional too. The biography talks about how in 1976 he decided to become a nomadic artist. Basically, he funded all his travels by selling his art.
Wow. That's commitment. He was really putting his art where his mouth was.
Absolutely. And it's not just about making a living. He had this complex relationship with the art world. Sometimes he'd refuse payment for his work, and he had very strong opinions about how exhibitions should be curated. He believed the artist should have complete control over the whole environment to minimize outside interference.
Really interesting. And there's this emphasis on faith and good work. Like, he believed that if the work was good, if it had integrity, that's what mattered in the end. And then there's this idea of turning stumbling blocks into stepping stones. He even painted jars of water to illustrate this, like, let the sediment settle, and then the way forward becomes clear.
I like that. And we should also talk about his mushy volante style. For our listener, mushy volantes is French for flying flies, and it refers to those little spots you see in your vision sometimes. He incorporated these into his paintings as dots and dashes, almost like optical illusions. And get this, he often signed his work as just anonymous or anonymous artists.
That's so interesting. It really points to this collaborative spirit. Like, he wanted to de-emphasize the individual ego.
Totally. The biography talks about how he wanted a more collective form of expression. He saw the artist as a free agent, only accountable to their own inner drive. And his whole idea of the purpose of art even evolved. He started with the classic art for art's sake, but then he shifted to art for life's sake, even more personally, art for my sake, art for survival's sake, art as this really integral part of being alive.
It's so cool to see where he got all these ideas, like his childhood in Ponca City, Oklahoma. The biography specifically mentions the Marland estate and the Pioneer Woman statue as having a big impact on him.
Right. And it wasn't just the visual landscape. He was a voracious reader. Emerson, the I Ching, haiku, all these philosophical and poetic influences, they definitely seeped into his art, this idea of expressing complex ideas in simple forms.
And then there was his Fulbright scholarship to Italy. He was blown away by Italian art. The Uffizi Gallery, the Capuchin Catacombs. He even mentions Botticelli's Birth of Venus and Flora as major inspirations.
Yeah, but he always added his own twist, like his Flora painting. It's described as being so different from the traditional Renaissance style.
Yeah.
Hidden imagery, this incredible energy. He took these classical influences and made them his own.
And the literary influences, too, like Gunter Grass's novel Dog Years. It was a direct inspiration for his Scarecrow series. And this whole theme of transformation we keep seeing, and Zen Buddhism, the I Ching, these philosophies really run through all his work like a golden thread.
Definitely. And all these influences, they contribute to the layers of meaning in his art. The biography talks about how he used text in his drawings. Sometimes it's directly related to the image, sometimes it's not. It's like clues in a mystery.
He wanted you to really think about what you were seeing, not just passively observe.
Exactly. And then there's the extra data problem. He deliberately added things that seem important but lead nowhere. It forces the viewer to look deeper, to make their own connections. It goes back to that point about the visual and the philosophical. His art makes you think. It doesn't give you all the answers.
And then, of course, there's this recurring theme of metamorphosis, the cycle of life, birth, death, rebirth. The biography says this was a big focus in his work from the 1970s.
Right. You see all these recurring images. Puppets, scarecrows, skulls, those glass reliquaries filled with water, all these hints of change, decay, renewal.
It's like he's visually exploring the different stages of being, the fact that nothing stays the same. And it's not morbid, it's more like a meditation on how life works.
And then in his later life, he moved to Oregon, then Louisiana. He kind of disappeared from the Houston art scene.
Yeah. But the quotes from his peers, his collectors, they show what an impact he had. Mystical trickster, a portal into truly experiencing art, a creative force. People really felt his art.
He definitely left his mark. And the biography says that there's still so much to discover about his work.
So much to unpack. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Bob Camblin, what are some key things our listeners should remember?
Well, I think the most important takeaways are, that questioning nature of his art,
Right.
the way he explored identity through the series of masks, his use of paradox and ambiguity, and his invitation to look for those hidden meanings.
Exactly. We hope this deep dive has given you a good understanding of this truly original artist
Yeah.
without overwhelming you.
Hopefully a few aha moments along the way.
So here's a final thought for you, something to ponder, inspired by Bob Camblin. Think about the masks you wear every day. Which ones hide who you really are? And which ones, maybe surprisingly, reveal something deeper? And what about those everyday miracles? The things we miss because we're stuck in our usual way of seeing things? If Camblin has sparked your curiosity, go check out his art. See what questions it raises for you.
You might be surprised what you discover.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
Until next time.